This conference will now be recorded.
All right, got the introduction here. Thank you all for joining the City of Kingston's Complete Street Advisory Council at our bi-monthly meeting. Today is June 10th, 2012. My name is Greg Krupp, the Complete Streets Liaison and organizer for this virtual meeting. Before we begin our meeting, we would like to go over a few meeting guidelines to help us navigate the system as efficiently and respectfully as possible. We ask that members of the public and press remain muted and off camera for the length of the meeting. As organizer, I reserve the right to mute anyone who unmutes themselves. Committee members and city staff will control their own mute button. Good practice would be to mute yourself if you are not speaking to avoid any background noise and feedback. If a committee member or staff wishes to speak, they can raise their hands. The chairperson will call on them before they speak by stating their name clearly for our audio listeners. All of our meetings are recorded. Both video and written transcriptions will be made available to the public on the city's website at a later date. Although we will not have public speaking tonight, you can submit your written comments to the City of Kingston Clerk, Elisa Tinti, at emtinti@kingston-ny.gov, or by dropping them off at our drop box outside the side door of City Hall. We also encourage you to reach out to the committee chair. If you have any audio issues, send a text to the following number, 845-418-9634. That's my number. I will repeat this number again, but be aware that phone calls will not be answered, just text. So the number is 845-418-9634. As the organizer for today's meeting, I will reserve the right to lock and pause the meeting to eject anyone who is behaving inappropriately. Lastly, at tonight's meeting, we have in attendance the chair, Bob Dennison. For committee members, we have Claudette Ford, John Gross-Boland, Sarah Wank. And for city staff, we have Emily Flynn, myself, Greg Krupp, and Kristen Wilson. And thank you for your patience during these difficult times. And on behalf of the Complete Streets, I wish you and your family good health. And I turn it over to the chair, Bob Dennison.
Thank you, Greg. It's very well done. I hope you guys rehearse those. That's very, you have to memorize it. There's a caller one, and I don't know who the caller is. Can you identify yourself?
Yes, it's Lorraine Farina. Hello.
Hello, Lorraine. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you doing?
Good.
Good.
All right. I don't think we're going to take our whole time this time, given that the world has kind of slowed down a little. Andy Turco-Levin has informed me that she is traveling today and unable to attend. And Brian Slack indicated to me that he will try to get here when he can, but he'll be late. Welcome, Pat. I see Pat O'Reilly has also joined us.
Thank you.
Let's dive right into the agenda and say welcome. I can welcome Lorraine. I don't know if you have any public comments or would like to make a statement. Now is your chance.
No, I'm just listening as a member of the CAC.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
So let's go to the review and approval of the minutes. I hope everybody was able to open them and read them. Do we have any comments on the minutes? Does anybody want to make a motion to accept them?
I'll make a motion.
We accept them.
Okay, John made the motion and Sarah, that was the second, is that correct? Okay, so John made the motion, Sarah seconded it. Any discussion? Absent discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Or those that I can't see, you'll have to say aye, like Claudette, I can't see you, and I can't see.
Aye.
Or John. Anybody opposed? Any abstainers? Okay, the minutes are passed and accepted. That's good. We can move on. Old business. I did spend some time looking at the website, at projects, but I've also had real life experience as we wander around the city and see all this great stuff going on. I don't know if anybody has any questions that they want to ask of Greg or Kristen or Emily about the projects that are underway. Now would be your opportunity. Comments, thoughts. I assume things are going. How are things going on the Broadway project, Kristen? Do we want to, or Greg, either one?
Yeah, Greg is actually helping out with construction inspection a bit, or here and there, right? I think you muted me, Greg. That's okay.
Bad timing.
Yeah. So, essentially it's moving along. Obviously there's a lot of activity out there. I haven't been out there in a week myself, but they're working on the sidewalk, installation of the sidewalk between Henry and the YMCA. So I know they were working on grading. They were basically setting all the groundwork for the sidewalk to be installed. So Greg, do you have a further update? I haven't been out there in a week.
No, mostly the past week they've been just getting their grades for the sidewalk. They've started doing some demolition this past week going west from Henry Street. And so they're starting to set their grades for the curb ramps and whatnot there. And that's where they've been at this week.
We have regular updates on the website. It's the city website / Broadway construction. So I put an update up there every week or every 2 weeks, depending on when I get it from the contractor, and then usually a picture. So you can look at a picture if you want to check that out.
I just have one observation. I didn't realize it's going to be granite curbs, huh?
Yeah.
That's pretty fancy.
Well, I think that that's to alleviate issues with the snowplows. Because the concrete curbs are so easily destroyed by the snowplows. So in general, it seems my experience has been that the engineers have recommended granite curbs.
And there's also some granite curb out there already, so it makes sense, but it'll be nice.
Yeah, it seems to be that we're moving towards all these new projects to just have granite curb as our first option, at least.
The other news about Broadway is that we are holding a public meeting on the Broadway and Grand Intersection Improvements Project. That's scheduled for, I want to say, June 24th. Yes, June 24th at 6:30 p.m. And so we're working that out. It'll be a public meeting at which people can ask questions and use, essentially the chat box to ask questions and get answers. And we'll be presenting the design and some options or really conceptual ideas for the public space that's going to be created by the intersection reconfiguration.
Who's doing the design?
GPI is doing the design. It made the most sense because the original Broadway streetscape project ended at the intersection, and there are certain parts of the current construction project that really need to be coordinated with the intersection. And particularly the lighting. The lighting is in the Broadway streetscape project is funded by NYSERDA, and it's actually at all of the intersections, the signalization, I mean, not the street lighting. That's at all of the intersections on Broadway, I believe down to East Chester. So there needed, we really needed to have the same designer.
I think it makes sense to use GPI. That's a smart move.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any other comments or questions on ongoing exciting construction projects around town? Your guys are benefiting from this, from the pandemic, and the traffic should be lighter than normal. So that should help us with our schedules as we go forward with these. All right, let's move into new business. We circulated, or Brian provided, and we circulated a draft from Ithaca, their policy on e-bikes and e-scooters, which is an interesting policy. My understanding is if we do nothing, if the city does nothing, then shared systems like rentals can't happen. Privately owned or leased, if people have an e-bike, they can use them and it's consistent with the state law. Can't drive them on a sidewalk, which makes perfect sense. But you can't, there's no, unless the locals act, there's no way to have a rental, lease, like a city bike kind of model. I'm curious about what others think about what Brian said around. Has anybody got any comments? Go
Hello?
ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I thought the idea was interesting, but I'm not opposed to something like a bike share. And if this is going to cause that to have a problem, I think we'd have to look at it a little differently.
I agree. My expectation, if the city may be approached by bike share people, I would best be the next step. Emily, you had your hand up.
Can you hear me?
No, we're not hearing you, Emily. We'll have to blame Greg.
She's unmuted. We can't hear her for some reason.
She might have to try to unmute herself. Hello?
You're unmuted, Emily.
I don't think it's a mute. I think I'm having bad internet.
Gotcha.
Computer problems. While we wait for Emily to figure out her technical challenges, anybody else have a comment? Sarah or John or Pat?
I was just wondering about the folks that have the long-term rentals with Bird, and or they buy a Bird scooter. Is that something that is falls under this rental thing as described here, or is that a completely different category because it's a long-term thing?
My reading of it is that that's not a shared system, but a lease, and therefore it is legal without local action. I think the shared ones are the ones that are the problem.
So even though it's branded as a Bird, you don't think that would be an issue?
My guess is just one operator or, one family.
Okay.
I don't think it would be the brand or whatever. I think it's just who is the primary owner or lessee of the vehicle. And if it's a long-term lease, it's like leasing a car. You're not banning Chevys. You're talking to the person who's leasing the vehicle. So,
I'm just thinking about it from an enforcement standpoint. It's got Bird written on it, and they're known as a share service. How do you know that it's not or that it is a long-term lease or a buy situation versus a share? Maybe I'm thinking thinking about this too much, but I'm just looking down the road for potential problems that maybe aren't addressed in these documents now.
That's a good point. I think enforcement as a whole is going to be an interesting challenge. How is a police officer going to know whether it's a class 1 or a class 2 or a class 3? It's I don't see him being able to effectively enforce any of that.
I don't know.
They'd have to use radar and just see how fast they're going. It's yeah. I don't know. The whole thing, I guess, is going to be troublesome for a while.
I have a comment from Emily here in the chat, and she says, when I read through the information from Brian, it said that electric bikes won't be allowed on the green line unless the city passed a law saying that it was allowed. And she believes we should work towards allowing it.
I think she's right. I think I had the same interpretation, and I agree that they should be allowed on the green line and other pathways. I don't know if they probably won't be on the Empire State Trail then either.
Well, is it the green line or just the trail portions? Because we've got a lot of on-street, and I didn't read it that they would be excluded from the on-street portions. Okay. And Waka Valley Rail Trail is part of the Empire State Trail, and they have the prohibition on electric bikes. And there's already been heated conflict over that between Waka Valley Land Trust staff and users. So, again, we're going to have an enforcement quagmire.
Well, I think it's going to become increasingly hard to enforce, legislate, or even prohibit electric vehicles, those kind of electric vehicles. So I don't know, how much needs to be invested into something that is being proposed as being environmentally friendly, but now you're telling people they can't use it.
Sarah, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of disagree. I'm really not a fan of those e-bikes. I think they're noisy. They are on a lot of the trails. I've been on some of the rail trails when kids were riding them, and they're, anytime you're on an electric vehicle like that, speed is an issue. They're reckless. I would be happier just, I think particularly on rail trails and the green line, like, have it be for pedestrians and cyclists. I just feel like we have an awful lot of motorized vehicles in an awful lot of places now. So I'm not a fan. And anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Emily?
I'll try it again. Will this work? Yeah? All right. I just want to clarify that the language speaks to electric bikes, which are quiet. So Sarah, have you ever seen me riding my electric cargo bike?
Yes, and it's quiet. My electric bike's quiet too.
And I think
But
that in that language from Brian,
I think you open it up, if you have an electric bike or a scooter, then somebody comes with a motorcycle or a motor scooter, and again, how do you enforce that? Like if somebody's like, well, if you can have an e-bike, why can't you have a gas bike? I guess would be it. I think enforcement is always going to be the issue with this stuff.
so that language from Brian again is very specific on how do you define an electric bike versus a loud like engine bike, and the scooters language is very specific. I just want to point out that electric bikes and those so-called scooters really allow a larger variety of people to have access. So I think that we should be very careful about limiting electric bikes from paths so that we can allow people with disabilities to also enjoy them.
I agree.
I was just also going to mention that I think electric bikes are something that a lot of older people who may use, even if they're not disabled. Especially in Kingston where we have so many hills, it does actually limit bicycling for a lot of people because the effort of getting up the hill is too difficult, and with an electric assist, it makes bicycling available for a lot of people who might not otherwise do it.
I will admit that it has opened up the Ronda to me again, having an electric bike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should
I do want to acknowledge, I think, Sarah's concern about the louder, engine-based bikes. And I agree, some of them can be really loud and disruptive. So I think that there should be some more information in the community about that.
Yeah, I have the same concern about the motorbikes that are really loud. That even if there was no issue with e-bikes, that's still going to be a problem of enforcement, whether we had e-bikes or not. I know that it's come up on the Kingston Point Rail Trail a number of times that people in motorized, whether it's an ATV or a motorbike, that people are getting on the trail and doing that. That's just something we're going to have to continue to work on.
do we want to take, as a council, do we want to take a position on this at this time or not?
I did just email something that was sent to the mayor. It was from a Cornell Law School professor, and it has a lot of, it's specifically about scooters. So I don't know if we are really ready to make a recommendation today, or if, well, maybe we are about e-bikes, but I don't know about scooters. So I'm not sure if we should table the whole thing since maybe we're not sure about scooters yet.
I think that until we can come up with something that's comprehensive, we certainly shouldn't do things that are piecemeal. Deal with e-bikes and then come back and amend it for scooters. If there's more information, then I agree we should table it until we get what we need.
That makes sense to me as well. The other issue I think is when push will come to shove, when a vendor comes in and says that they want to do a shared bike program or a shared scooter program, then the city's going to have to react to that. And that might be a more appropriate time to make a recommendation. But thinking about it is okay.
I agree with you, Bob, because I do think that is going to come up. There is going to be somebody or somebody's who are going to approach that, and it's certainly something that would be, I think, good and useful for the city of Kingston and surrounding areas. So, I would hold off. That would be my recommendation, is to hold off until we get further information and then see what we need to do.
In the meantime, Emily, you'll have to just ride on the street.
I also just want to put 2 cents in. I think it's also important to think about safety on this issue. I think we think about it right now. We kind of talk about it on a sunny day, right? Where we want the e-bike to be. But I think I know when Mayor Noble talks about the Kingston Point Rail Trail, is that it's connecting certain neighborhoods in a way where it's for transportation. You know, it's not just necessarily about recreation and going for exercise. And I think, you know, I know people try to use it when the weather is inopportune. And so to push someone in an e-bike onto the street to go from, you know, the avenues to Broadway could make it unsafe for them. I think it's a consideration.
Okay, you've all convinced me, but no motorcycles.
Well, here's another monkey wrench. I'm starting to see a lot of golf carts around, people running them down the streets.
And you're going to as the population ages, because it's a mode of transportation for many of them.
Yeah, and I didn't think it was legal to run them on the streets. They don't have plates on them.
Probably isn't, but tell that to people in Florida, Georgia, Connecticut. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of people are using them these days because they, you know, it's their way of getting around, and it's cheaper than a wheelchair. So, you know, those are the kinds of things you would have to think about, even in terms of using the trails, and, you know, that we might want to consider in a total comprehensive plan towards something like this.
Alter, there's a term, I want to say the term is micro transportation, or there's a term of nowadays around about these small, low speed modes of transportation. It eludes me right now, but as soon as we're done with the call, I'll remember it.
So do you need a motion or something to table this, or what are we doing?
I think we just sit on it for now. I think it's good that we're thinking about it, and then when somebody calls us to do something, we'll have some more background. If we get more information, I think we should circulate it so that we're up to date.
Christian, can you circulate that document that came from the Cornell professor on the scooters?
I did. I just did about maybe 5-10 minutes ago. So let me know if you didn't get it.
I'll look at my
yeah,
email.
and it looks like he has some a template. It looks like, you know, we might be able to just start a draft document with positions. You know, it sounds like we're in agreement about e-bikes. We could start something there just to have it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, as we get more information, we can slowly draft something until it's comprehensive and covers everything.
Yeah. I think we should be thinking about it. I think it makes sense to start to gather stuff together and begin to draft something as it goes forward, because we don't want to be caught, you know, unaware if there's pressure from some vendor who wants the city council to act.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think as more and more as these streetscapes get completed, all the improvements, all the stuff that's going on with the trails, we're getting closer and closer to that being the next step in the process of making this a walkable city, a more easily traversed, accessible city. So it's coming. It's definitely coming. Now, whether it comes in a month, 2 months, 6 months, I don't know. I think from what I'm hearing, we're pretty much on the right lane to get started on it. I just feel that we should not come out with something concrete or what we feel is complete until we get a little bit more information, so that it's comprehensive enough that if it does need to be amended, it's not go back to square one again.
Yeah, I agree. So am I going to be able to ride my e-bike in the bike lane on Broadway when it's done?
I would say right, yes.
Good. So let's gather information and start thinking about it, and start to kick around ideas for drafting some sort of a position from the Complete Streets Advisory Committee, because Complete Streets include everything.
Yep.
Temporary street closures for outdoor cafes. I put this on here because I got a question from the county about, kind of what do you think about this? And I think they were thinking about as we reopen and restaurants and places can serve outdoors, does it make sense to recommend to the city council that certain streets get closed so the restaurants can expand into them and use appropriate social distancing while they do their business. Keegan's opened yesterday in his parking lot. They've got picnic tables and tents and high tops and a service bar. He's lucky he's got the room to do that in the parking lot. Customers will either have to bicycle or e-bike or walk to get there. But when you get down around Wall Street and down in the uptown section, they don't have that kind of room. So do we have an opinion on this? I mean, it's kind of the first response I got was from Andy Turco, who said, or Turco 11, who said, what about the parking being eliminated? It's the realtor talking, which is a legitimate thing to think about. Some people are not going to be happy about if closing the street costs parking. When you look at the farmers market in the back of the courthouse, now that's working pretty well. We'll see as it goes forward, and as it opens up and becomes more stuff there to sell, more vendors, more, how will that work on the long term, and will they go back on the street? Which was originally, my memory is, it was originally problematic for the people who had storefronts on the block that was closed for the original location of the farmers market, and then they moved it to accommodate them. And my memory is that they were mad after it got moved because they lost all the business from the people who were going to the farmers market. So it's a very tough trade-off as it goes forward. What do people think about that?
I think it's an interesting idea. I guess my concern is, one, access for the people who are disabled. How is that going to work? And I do agree that parking sometimes could be the issue. So if, from a financial point of view, if the meters are being fed by those parking meters, how's that revenue going to be made up? And are they being told they can park in another location? I mean, that would be my issue. The concept of them, because they can't be inside their actual spaces because it's too small for social distancing. I understand they want to work and they want to be able to make some money, but I think there are a couple of points of views here, and parking meter revenue is definitely important to city coffers.
Well, another option that I thought about was uptown in particular. You have the opportunity to do the restaurant seating in the parking spots. You still got 2 lanes running through there, so people could do drop-offs for somebody disabled to get to that restaurant seating. That's a potential option uptown. Elsewhere in town where there is no on-street parking, and I'm thinking about down by Armadillo, there's a lot less room there that you could put the the dining out on the street. I don't know. It's just something I was kicking around. It's just closed parking spots versus whole streets.
Kristen?
I just wanted to give an update on some of the things that the city is doing about this. We do have a survey. I think actually maybe 1 or 2 of you actually took it because I'm looking at the results right now. We do have a survey on engagekingston.com about the open streets. There's a survey for businesses and there's a survey for residents. And, it's essentially asking, would you participate? And if If not, why not, or what concerns do you have? So we are collecting data on this right now. So, and I think that the mayor is looking at all of that survey response and finding out if there are businesses that want to participate, and then thinking about the different options, you know, considering parking lots, streets, and parking spaces. And it, you know, it may very well depend on who would want to participate and what kind of impacts there would be for specific locations. So just wanted to give folks an update that that survey is out there. And if the council has any, you know, very specific recommendations that you would like to make to the mayor regarding this issue, I would do it pretty quickly, because I think that if he were to do this, I think he can do it through executive orders. And there, I think the phase 2, I've forgotten the dates, but the phase 2 opening is soon.
Yeah, it's coming
So,
quick. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Kristen. And I guess from my perspective, there's two things. One is the meters are bagged right now. So we're losing that revenue uptown or around town, which is okay. The other piece is that, you know, if the mayor's marching on with something, I think it would be okay for us to go and do the survey. That's a good thing to do. Probably better off not to take a position until he understands what he wants to do and understands, you know, how many people want to participate. I guess that would be my 2 cents on it.
Well, I think that there are pros and cons to all of them. They're good, they're bad. I guess my background in having dealt with parking meters at one point in time, I know that people are very sensitive to the loss of parking meter revenue, and they have had none with it being bagged. So to all of a sudden give up the possibility of getting parking revenue is, you know, it's a financial consideration. However, I do understand that if those businesses can't operate, that's another financial consideration. So I'd be wanting to see what that survey says and how they feel before I felt comfortable in taking a position as to what I guess this group is going to do, because, you know, it's all pretty relevant to what you want to achieve by doing it.
Sarah and then Kristen, or Kristen first? You two are next. Shoot it out.
I just was, are they also surveying or business owners? Because I mean, a lot would depend on, you know, does every restaurant on North Front and Wall want to open and do this? Because that could make a big difference in what was required. But I do agree. I mean, I got the survey and I felt like, you know, it's, I don't, you know, I think a lot of people will be nervous about going back. A lot, it just seems like there's so many open questions right now that, you know, but I would think if a restaurant really wanted to reopen and was ready to do it, we should try to help let that happen. I think Emily said in the chat, the meters are shut down through the summer, I believe, when Steve, you know, so that's that's a done deal. But I think it's really important to find out what the businesses want to do.
Yeah, the meters are shut down until Columbus Day. I think that's just to reduce the burden on people because everybody's going through a difficult economic time. I think that's the purpose of that. And the other part of this is that the city's sales tax revenue checks are coming in, you know, around 30% less than last sales tax checks for the same time frame. So I think that giving up parking revenue in lieu of allowing businesses to operate may be better for the city anyway, because if we have more business happening, then those sales tax revenue checks would hypothetically go up, and that would be more financially beneficial to the city than the parking revenue. So I'm really just speaking my own opinion. That's not the opinion of the mayor or so that's another consideration. And in the survey, there's a survey for business owners and there's a survey for residents and visitors. So I can tell you guys some of what I'm seeing. So far only 18 business owners have taken the survey, and 72% of them would like to participate, which is 13 businesses. So I think we're trying to target to get more response from businesses. And they have some comments on different issues that they think might come up. And then surveys for residents and visitors. So far we've had, looks like 282 responses. 75% people say they would participate in outdoor shopping. 83% say they would participate in outdoor dining. We have about 5% maybe, 11% no. So that's the kind of feedback that we're getting. And then there's a lot of people who are saying things like, they're going to stay in this summer anyway because they are an at-risk group, or other folks are saying that it's a great idea, and then I have comments about how it would work best. So that's the kind of input that we're getting. I think in general it seems positive, although there's always that aspect of people who take the survey are the ones who want it. Right. It's just.
Yeah, I know one fear from restaurant people is that nobody will come out, and you can't make a living if nobody comes out, and you can't get staff if nobody's coming out, because they got to make a living too. So it gets to be, it's complicated.
Yeah.
But it sounds to me like we should not take a position at this. We should sit back and see what happens, and probably do the survey.
I agree.
Yeah, everybody in the same mind about that?
Yeah, it sounds reasonable.
Okay. All right. New business, Complete Streets Vice Chair. Once upon a time, there was a vice chair. Scott was the vice chair, and then he quit. So having a vice chair would be a good thing from my perspective. And I've poked around and thought about it, and I've approached John to see if he would be amenable to being the vice chair. So I'd like some discussion and then maybe a motion. What do people think?
What does John think?
I was going to say, what does John think? Thank you.
Well, he already hit me up on the email on this, and I'm okay with it.
All right, John, if you're okay with it, I'll move that we vote for you to become the vice chair.
Yeah, I think I'm almost at my term limits anyway, so.
Well, remember, your term goes, your term limit does expire. However, the mayor has informed me that absent his action, your term continues. Or those of us that are members, our term continues absent his action, affirmative action to get rid of you. So.
Yeah. Well, isn't there a hard limit though on how long you can serve? 6 years or 8 years or something like that?
I think there used to be, or I think there might be, but from what he explained to me, that the general municipal law means you're not bound by that. So that's
okay.
So I have a motion. Can I have a second? Sarah seconded. Any discussion? Okay,
Any challengers?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstainers? Okay, congratulations, John. I'll send you over the mantle and all the things, all the accoutrements that go with vice chair.
Okay.
Okay, announcements, events, updates. Anybody have anything they'd like to announce or communicate? We haven't received any communication, so we can go over that. Events and updates. Anybody have anything to add? Okay. Absent anything, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Okay. Seconded. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Hey.
I assume there's nobody against or an abstainer. I'm jumping ahead. I'm presuming that. Well, thank you all. Stay cool, stay safe. Look forward to, you can stop by Keegan's and have a beer. I know he's open.
Yeah, Deet Stadium Diner set up in their parking lot now too.
Oh, okay, all right. So it's slowly opening. Let's hope that we don't have a bad consequence.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
Well, when is the next meeting?
Greg, when is the next meeting? Because I have no idea.
Let me check real quick. I think it's September?
September, could be.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Yes,
All right.
September.
September
Now,
3rd, September 9th.
you know, unless we get an emergency or a request for an exciting opinion or something, we'll meet again in September. Everybody have a wonderful summer.
All right.
You too, Bob.
Okay.
Sarah.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Leaving. Okay, leaving. I figure out how to leave. Okay.